man may pick up his son, although a man may pick up his son, although there is a stone in his hand, or a basket, although there's a stone in it. Similarly, one may move contaminated truma together with uncontaminated truma, or with ordinary food. Rabbi Yehuda says we may also remove one pan of truma from a mixture with 100 parts of ordinary food. A stone which is on the opening of a cask, one may tilt on its side so that it falls off. If it was among the other casks, one may lift it and then tilt it on its side so that it falls off. Money which is on a pillow, one may shake the pillow so it falls off. And if there was filth on it, he may wipe it off with a rag. But if it was made of leather, if it was made of leather, we may put water on it until it disappears. Beit Shammai says we may pick up bones and husks from the table, but Beit Hillel says one must pick up the entire table board and shake it. And we remove from this table even crumbs less than the size of an olive, as well as the pods of chickpeas and pods of lentils, because they are animal fodder. A sponge, if it has a leather handle, we may wipe with it. If not, we may not wipe with it. And the sages, whoever say, in either case, it may be moved about on Shabbos and is not susceptible to tumor contamination. Okay.
All right. Chavis shenishbara. So you've got a jug or a barrel or some sort of a cask that's gotten broken,
Mhm.
and the let's say we've got wine inside it and it's starting to leak out. So now, remember the story we had of the fire, and a person was only allowed to save up to 3 meals of
Right.
whatever, because we're concerned that a person is Adam Baul al Mamano, he's gonna forget himself because of his concern for his property, and he's gonna come and put the fire out. And the same thing goes for the barrel. We're concerned that he's gonna try and repair the barrel. Okay. Um, so again, we put restrictions on him to put his head in a halachic framework and say, okay, you're only allowed to save matzilin hemeno mazon shalosh sudos. You can only save 3 meals worth of it. And he says to others, come and save for yourselves. So again, the same thing where the people can come and rescue these things for themselves. And while we're talking about it, obviously they're going to do the cheshbon on it the same way as they did with the fire. But the Mishnah sees fit to warn people, don't soak it up. Don't use something like a cloth or a sponge to soak it up so that you can squeeze it out later, because your natural motion is you're going to take it and squeeze it out, and that is doraisa. Okay.
Right.
Ein sochtin es haperos. Now, while we're talking about squeezing, you're not allowed to squeeze fruit. Lo tzi mehen mashkin. Okay, to take out the juice. Me'atzman asurin. But if the juice came out by itself, then the juice is asur. Okay, now Rabbi Yehuda comes along and clarifies, and well, he actually argues in this particular case. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, im la'ochlin hayotze mehen mutar. If the fruit that you've got is normally for eating, then if juice
Mhm.
drips out of it, then it's fine. It's mutar. V'im lamashkin. If, however, the fruit is usually designated for juice, then hayotze mehen aser. Then what comes out is aser. So that's talking typically about grapes and olives.
Right. Right.
Grapes
Okay.
are grown for their juice specifically, and it's only, it's sort of it's a secondary thing that you can eat the olives or the grapes by themselves. Okay. Um, so also the fact is that it's an interesting thing, but for some reason we pass in that lemons are in the category of heter. So for example, you can take a lemon and squeeze it over your salad or over your fish, over a solid, but you can't squeeze it into a glass. So you can't squeeze it so that you can have the juice, but you can squeeze it to flavor the other food.
Okay.
Um, okay, chalos dvash, that is the honeycomb. Sheriskan may Erev Shabbos, and if you crushed the honeycomb before Shabbos, v'yatzu me'atzman, and the honey started to dribble out of it on Shabbos. So you crushed it before, but now the honey is dripping out afterwards. This is Asr, but Rabbi Elazar is Matir, and actually, uh, because the concern, why did Chachamim say that you're not allowed to have it? Because there's a concern that you're going to come and crush them even more.
Right.
That you might come
It's
and
just
crush them on Shabbos. So, and Rabbi Elazar is not cautious for this, and the halacha actually follows Rabbi Elazar in this case,
right.
where it is permitted. All right. Mishnah base. Kol she ba b'chamin me'erev Shabbos. So anything that has already been cooked in hot water before Shabbos. Shori nosa b'chamin b'Shabbos. You're allowed to soak it again in hot water because we have a principle of ein bishul acha bishul. You cannot cook once something's already been cooked. That is a solid. A solid cannot be cooked a second time. So therefore, you're allowed to heat it up in hot water on Shabbos. So if you have some hot water available and you want to reheat it, not on the fire, but you can put it into already hot water to heat up. Um, v'chol shelo ba b'cha- Hmm?
That would be like if someone kept soup on a black for Shabbos afternoon.
Soup is a liquid. It's a different halacha. When
I
it
want to talk
comes,
about
when it
I'm
comes
talking about solids, right?
talking about solid, something that was boiled. So let's say you've got some boiled potatoes,
Okay.
okay, and you want and now went cold over Shabbos, and now you want to reheat them for lunch, and you have some hot water, and you want to put them into that hot water. That's 100% okay because they're already cooked. Now, liquid cooking by solids and cooking by liquids are different things. When cooking by solids, you're actually changing the form. Like in the most extreme example, you can think of eggs. Once an egg is
Right.
cooked, it's totally changed its form. But meat moves from raw to cooked. Potatoes move from a hard to soft. Eggs moved from soft to hard.
Right.
So there's something that has changed in the actual appearance, in the nature of the food itself once it has been cooked. Water when there is bishul by water, but water doesn't change its form other than talking about it's stayed from to gas or whatever. But if assuming it's staying liquid, um, the very nature of cooking of a liquid is just making it a hotter temperature so that it's more enjoyable or whatever. Um, so if it cools down, it's reverted back to its original state exactly, and now you do have bishul acha bishul.
Okay. All
Okay.
right.
Um, anyway, back to our subject. So if something had not been cooked before Shabbos, medichin also b'chamin Shabbos. You're allowed to rinse it with hot water. In other words, the difference between the first case and the second case is in a kli rishon. You're allowed to soak it in the hot water is in the kli rishon. Medichin also b'chamin Shabbos. Rinsing it means basically kli sheni.
Right.
You're
Right.
pouring it from a kli rishon. So iroi kli rishon is basically like a kli sheni. Um, in although it's a little stronger than a cliché because the cliché has got the walls of the kli that help to cool it down. But at any rate, you're allowed to rinse it in hot water on Shabbos, from the stream, or put it in a klisheni. Chutz min hamaliach hayashan v'dagim meluchim ketanim v'kulyasei ispanin. This over here, this list of foods, the old salted things and salted fish, little fish and kulyas, whatever kulyas is, but they're called the kalei habishul, the things that cook easily. So
Right. Right.
these things are not even allowed in a cliché because we're concerned that they will cook. They're so quick to cook that we don't allow you to cook them in a cliché. So that's
That,
what we have in the Mishnah as far as kalei bishul is concerned. I mean, some people talk about tea as being one of the kalei bishul, although it's not mentioned over here. So that requires a posek to determine whether something is in that category of kalei bishul.
the other thing he wanted was Spanish mackerel. It's called.
Spanish mackerel, right? And the Mishnah says, "Shehadachas an zoi gemar melachtan." Rinsing them in hot water, that is how they get finished. So you can't do that on Shabbos. Mishnah Gimel, Shover Adam es achavis le'echol hem grogros. Now, you are allowed to perform a distractive act, as long as that distractive act is not for reconstructing the actual thing that you're breaking. But let's say you've got our Mishnah talks about breaking open the cask to get at the dried figs that are inside it. But I mean, we have this every day in our packaging. Like you're allowed to open a bag of chips. Okay,
Right.
you're allowed to tear it open. You're tearing the bag. That's a destructive act. But your intention is to get at the food, and that is allowed. Okay.
It's not talking about tearing the writing if you're opening the bag.
There's nothing in here about tearing the writing because that wasn't in the industrial conditions of the Mishnah. Um,
Right.
the
Sure.
tearing of the writing, by the way, everyone talks about it, and there are poskim who say that you're not allowed to tear through the writing, but there are poskim who say that's not there's no difference whether it's writing or no writing.
Right.
uh, you know, consult your Rav and do what you feel comfortable with. But there are definitely poskim who held that there's no issue with tearing through the writing because just like tearing through the bag, it's a destructive act. You're not going to redo the writing afterwards, so it's no worse than tearing through the bag itself.
So many times I hear people like, there's a birthday and there's a birthday cake. I say, well, wow, that you can't,
Now,
don't,
the birthday, interesting, the birthday cake that's got the writing in relief is actually more of a question. Um, but
because it stands out.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
That's slightly more of a question, but I'm not going to get my head into that right now.
Okay. All right. All right.
Ein nok
Okay.
v'en gufa shel chavis. Now, when you've got the stopper of a cask, uh,
Right.
so says Rabbi Yehuda, you're not allowed to puncture that bung in order to let things out.
Hmm.
He says you have to unbang it completely. Just take out the stopper altogether. The Chachamim say there's no difference if you make a because this is not Rabbi Yehuda is concerned that this is a way of making a spout, and that's a permanent thing. And the Chachamim say this is not a normal way of doing things. We're not concerned about it. Okay, v'lo yikvena mitzida, uh, and you shouldn't make a hole in its side. um, the Chachamim only said that you can make the hole in the top of the bung, but in the side of the bung, even the Chachamim agree that it's also to make such a hole on Shabbos because sometimes you make the hole for the barrel over there since they didn't want to make a hole in the top so that you shouldn't have things stones and dust falling into the top. So that now actually is a more permanent way of doing things because you've now got a nice opening that's not going to get dust in it. Okay. Im haisana cover. Now what happens if it's already got a hole in it? Lo yitain aleha shava. You're not allowed to, and now you want to stop up the barrel, you're not allowed to put wax on top of it. Is the mipnei shu mamarech. Now the smoothing of the wax, that's the malacha over there.
Right.
Okay. So that's
Right.
another, it's a separate malacha of Mamarech. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Maaseh ba lifnei Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai ba'arav. We remember we had the case with the scorpion where somebody put a bowl on top of a scorpion in Arav, and Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai saw them doing it and said, Choshesh shanim lo mechatas. He said the same thing about somebody who put wax on
On
the
the
on the bun.
right.
Okay.
Okay.
Zero.
Okay. Yud Zayin base.
Mm-hmm.
A person may not take a hammer on which to crack nuts, or a hatchet with to cut a cake or press figs, a saw with which to slice cheese, a shovel with which to scoop up dried figs, a winnowing shovel or a pitchfork on which to put something for a child, a spindle on a weaver's reed, which is with which to spear fruit, a hand needle with which to take out a thorn, or a sack made as needle with which to open the door. A cane for olives, if there is a knot at its end, it is susceptible to tumor contamination, and if not, it's not susceptible to tumor contamination. In either case, it may be taken on Shabbos. Rav Yoshi says all utensils may be taken for a large saw and a kolta.
Step
All
four.
utensils, I'm sorry. All utensils may be taken except for a large saw or coulter, and all utensils may be taken out of necessity, but not out of necessity. Then the Chama says this may not be taken except out of necessity. Okay. And
Aleph Yod.
Shabbos. Field. We may not roast meat, onions, or eggs unless there is sufficient time for them to become roasted while it is yet day. We may not place bread in the oven near nightfall, nor a cake upon coals unless there is sufficient time for its upper surface to form a crust while it's yet day. If Eliezer says sufficient time for its bottom surface to form a crust. We may lower the Pesach suffering into the oven at near nightfall, and we may ignite with chips the fire of the fire in the temple fire chamber. But in the country, this may not be done unless there is sufficient time for the fire to take hold of most of them. Rabbi Yehuda says with charcoal is permitted as long as there's sufficient time for the fire to take a hold of any amount. With what may we light the Sabbath light? What may we not light the Sabbath light? We may light neither with cedar bass nor with uncarded flax, nor with floor silk, nor with willow bass, nor with desert fiber, nor with seaworth, nor with light with pitch, nor with wax, nor with not with cotton seed, nor with oil that must be burnt, nor with flax from a sheep's tail, nor with tallow. And Nachman Amin says we may light with boiled tallow, but the sages say whether it's boiled or not boiled, we may not light with it. Okay. So, if one gives his laborers and his guests truma to eat, he pays its value and then pays the fifth. So says Reb Meir. But the comments say they pay its value and the fifth, then he pays them for the value of the meal. If one stole truma but did not eat it, he pays double the value of truma. If he ate it, he pays twice its value and a fifth, the value plus a fifth from chulin and the value of truma. If one stole truma of a hekdesh and ate it, he pays 2/5 and its value, since twofold payment does not apply to hekdesh. One may not from leka chikakapea or hefka, nor from ma'aser rishon, from which his truma is taken, or from ma'aser sheni or hekdesh which has been redeemed. For one holy thing cannot redeem another, so says Reb Meir, but could come and permit this. Okay. Maros. Okay, Yud Dalet. One who places grapes taken from the baskets and one from the expanse on the ground to the winepress. The Beis Shammai says he must put them in the winepress with hands that are tahor. If he puts them in the winepress with hands that are tummy, he has rendered the grapes tummy. Beis Hillel says he may put the grapes in the winepress with hands that are tummy and can still separate the truma in tahara. If one took grapes from a bucket or from an expanse on leaves, everyone agrees he must put them in the winepress with hands that are tahor. And if he put them in the winepress with hands that are tummy, he has rendered the grapes tummy. One who eats grapes taken from baskets from the expanse on the ground, even if the grapes are cracked and the juice is dripping onto the winepress is tahor. If the grapes are from a bucket or expanse of leaves and a single grape fell into the winepress, if the grape has a seal, the winepress is tahor, and if it does not have a seal, the winepress is tameh. If a cluster of grapes fell from him and he pressed them on an empty place, so the winepress, if the cluster consists of precisely the volume of an egg, the winepress is tahor. The cluster consists of more than the volume of an egg, the winepress is tameh. For as soon as the first drop of juice came out, it was rendered tummy by the volume of an egg. Okay.
One more. One more still.
Really still? Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, I did. If one was standing and talking on the rim of a pit and saliva poured out of his mouth, and there was a doubt whether the saliva reached the pit and did not reach it, there's uncertainty is ruled tahor. Okay. And we're going to a new one tomorrow.
After Taurus is mikvahs.
Mikvahs, okay. Mikvahs. And Benachos. Okay, Yud Beis Gimel. If he said, I take upon myself to bring a mincha offering.
We're on
really? Oh, sorry. A person may donate a mincha offering of 60 Issaron and bring it in one vessel. If he said, I take upon myself to bring 61 Issaron, he brings 60 in one vessel and one in another. And similarly, the congregation brings 61 on the first day of Sukkot, which falls on the Shabbos. It is sufficient for an individual that he be one less in the congregation. But Shimon says, but are these for the bowls and these for the lamb, and they may not be mixed with one another. Rather, until 60 can be mixed. They said to him, 60 can be mixed and 61 cannot be mixed. He said to them, all measurements of the Chachamim are thus. In 40 saw one can immerse, but in 40 saw less one kotov, he cannot immerse. One cannot donate a log, 2 lugim, or 5, but he can donate 3, 4, or 6, and from 6 up. One can donate wine, but cannot donate oil. These are the words of Rabbi Akiva. Reb Tofen says one can donate oil. Says Reb Tofen, just as we find concerning wine that it comes as an obligation or a donation, so too oil comes from an obligation or a donation. Rabbi Akiva said to him, no, this was said of wine. It's because it is brought as an obligation on its own. Can you say the same of oil, which is not brought as an obligation on its own? Two people cannot donate one Issarim, but they can donate an oil offering and a shlomin offering, and with a bird, even a single bird. Okay. That. Okay. And we have nausea.
Also, one more in Menachos.
Really? Oh, I'm so sorry. 13.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I take upon myself to bring an Issaron, he brings 1. If he said Issaron, he brings 2. If I said I specified, but I do not know what I specified, it must be 60. If I said I take upon myself to bring a mincha offering, he may bring whichever he wishes. Rabbi Yehuda said he must bring the mincha of fine flour, for that is the principle of the mincha offering. That's Gimel Dalet. One who says I'm a Nazir for 100 days, if he came Tomei for one day, came Tomei on day 100, he forfeits all. But Eliezer says he forfeits only 30. If he became Tomei on day 101, he forfeits 30 days. Reb Eliezer says he forfeits only 7. Someone who declared himself a Nazir while in a cemetery, even if he was there for 30 days, they are not reckoned for him in the count of his term, and he does not bring the sacrifice of Tumah. If he left and re-entered, they are reckoned for him in the count, and he does bring the sacrifice of Tumah. If Eliezer says not on the same day as it says, but the first day shall be forfeit, until these are the first days. Someone declared in the Nazirus of long duration and completed his term as Nazirus, and afterward came to the land of Israel. Beit Shammai says he is a Nazir for 30 days. Beit Hillel says he is a Nazir as at first. It happened with Queen Helena that her son went to war, and she declared, "If my son returns in peace after the war, I shall be a Nazir for 7 years." Her son returned from the war. She was a Nazir for 7 years, and at the end of 7 years, she went up to the land of Israel, and Beit Hillel ruled for her that she must be a Nazir for another 7 years. At the end of these 7 years, she became Tomei, so it resulted that she was a Nazir for 21 years. The Yehuda said she was a Nazir for only 14 years. Okay.
Okay,
And that's
and
okay,
that's it.
good. I got you on time. Okay, all right.
Okay, have a great
Thank you.
day.
Bye.